Hey y'all, a quick note before we kick off this interview. Today on the podcast, I have Quinn Campbell, marketing lead at Axie Infinity. And I was told beforehand that for legal, etc. reasons, we could not talk about the Axie hack. Quinn was open to me asking a question about it, and he would just have to say, basically, I have nothing I can say on this, so I didn't end up wasting his time by asking it. But I did want to say that before you go and listen to this episode, because it is a little bit the elephant in the room to interview somebody from Axie Infinity during this time and not ask about the hack that just happened. I've talked about it on the podcast in other episodes. If you want to go check out the latest recap episode, Zeneca and I talk about the Axie hack, but it does not come up in this episode. I promise, however, you should still listen. It's still great. We get into the sustainability question, which is at the heart of the Axie debate. People who are bullish versus bearish on Axie. And I learned a lot from Quinn. I think he will too, but wanted to put that out there. Hello, everyone. GM. Welcome back to another episode of Overpriced JPEGs. I'm Carly Riley, and here with me today, we have Quinn Campbell, marketing lead at the one and only Axie Infinity. Y'all know it, one of the most important companies, I would say, okay, is this overstating it? Like, in the world. Like, I think it's so pioneering in terms of what Axie has ushered into our world. And I think when the history books are written, we're going to be able to draw a line from what Axie did to a lot of things that are very important down the line. So very excited to be talking with you, Quinn. We were just joking earlier, you're my first Axie guest, which is kind of crazy to think about.
It's long overdue. I appreciate that intro, Carly. Yeah, we believe historians are going to be looking through Twitter threads and Discord server chat history in the future.
Definitely. I think like business books, like business case studies definitely will. And then like the books about the future of, you know, how the economy played out and how like jobs played out. We'll definitely have Axie in that story. Before we dive in really deep into everything we want to talk about here today, we're going to take a quick moment to get a word from our sponsors.
Living a bankless life requires taking control over your own private keys. And that's why so many in the bankless nation already have their Ledger hardware wallet. And brand new to the Ledger lineup of hardware wallets is the Ledger Nano S Plus, a huge upgrade to the world's most popular hardware wallet. With more memory and a larger screen, the Nano S Plus makes it easy to navigate and verify your transactions. And the paired Ledger Live desktop app gives you increased transparency as to what is about to happen with your NFT. What you see is what you sign. The Nano S Plus gives you the smoothest possible user experience while you're doing all of your crypto things. So go to the Ledger website to check out the features of the new Ledger Nano S Plus and join the waitlist to get yours. And don't forget about the Crypto Life card, also powered by Ledger. The CL card is a crypto debit card that hooks right into the Ledger Live app, right next to all the DeFi apps and services that you're already used to doing, like swapping tokens and staking. So if you don't have a Ledger hardware wallet, go to ledger.com, grab a Ledger, and take control over your crypto. RARIBLE is the NFT platform that's leading the charge into the multi-chain universe ahead of us. Available on Flow, Tezos, Polygon, and of course, Ethereum, RARIBLE is the perfect place for NFT newcomers, profile picture collectors, and experienced NFT traders. RARIBLE has a variety of NFT features that set it apart from other NFT marketplaces. They have a native messaging function allowing you to DM your friends or haggle with sellers. They also have a mobile app on iOS and Android with a built-in NFT portfolio tracker tool, so you can easily check the value of your digital art portfolio. RARIBLE is built on the RARIBLE protocol, a multi-purpose, open source, and community-governed NFT protocol that helps build products and services across the NFT ecosystem, including white label marketplaces tailored to specific NFT communities. So go to rarible.com and start discovering and trading NFTs, putting in floor bids to join PFP communities, and DM with some brand new internet friends.
All right. Quinn, the first thing that jumped out at me when I was looking into kind of you specifically is you had this history of like you were at Deloitte and then you got your master's in, or was it a master's in Chinese studies at Hopkins?
That's right.
And then it was like, and then you're at Axie Infinity. And I'm wondering, like, were your parents like, what? Like, what is, how do you explain what Axie Infinity is to your parents? Or how did that go?
Yeah, that's definitely a tough one, right? In terms of, yeah, I mean, the journey's been a fun one for sure. Yeah, I always have kind of had a bug for China. I spent about 5 years living there as well. Yeah, I left Deloitte and ended up in traditional games publishing, which was a blast, but it kind of really quickly I started to get turned sour on it. And the reason why is because I realized every game we were publishing, we were taking about 70 to 80% of all the revenue on. and the game devs themselves were actually only capturing 20% of the revenue. And that just felt so wrong to me, right? Because you're helping these devs make their dream come true, and they push the game out, and then they only get 20% of the money off the top of the game that they created. And so I realized the middlemen were the problem, and I was a middleman. And so it was right around that time I saw Mavis Hub, which is kind of what Axie loads through, right? And it just immediately clicked that this is now this way to distribute directly to your community. And that's what Web3 unlocks in a way that traditional games never could before. And so I knew I had to be there. And yeah, it was definitely a big jump explaining what the heck Axie was to everybody. But I think in its simplest sense, right? Like, it's digital pet collectibles. We've all seen that before. Pokemon, Digimon, right? And it's a card battler, which also we've seen before in Pokemon at the same way, right? In terms of the Web3 sides of things, like, that's kind of a next step when it comes to unlocking that in people's minds. I think at the end of the day, right, a lot of NFT games, they try to market that they're NFTs. But those are the tools. Those are the tools to creating what the ultimate kind of end game is. We don't want to really market that it's an NFT game. We want to market that it's like a free and open economy, where you actually have true ownership rights and things like that. And so those are the kinds of things that I'm actually really using to explain to people.
This might be naive to say, but it also feels like that shouldn't be such a leap for a Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh players. You can tell I was not one of these growing up.
No, you got it. You got it. You probably played a little Pokemon growing up.
I honestly don't think I ever did. But I remember boys in my class at lunchtime having these cards.
For sure.
But I almost feel like my parents were like discouraging of it. And I couldn't tell you why. Not what we're here to discuss. I was going to say, I feel like it would be a more natural concept there than, say, somebody who's used to a video game model, perhaps, only insofar, like, you owned your Pokemon cards, and by owning that Pokemon card, it had value, and you could sell it, and some of these have accrued tremendous amounts of value. So even that dynamic is
right.
Pretty familiar.
When you compare it to these like actual tangible physical games, card games especially, right? It's a much easier kind of concept to grasp. Because you do own it, it can increase in value. To be honest, most of us who ever owned Pokemon cards, they weren't investments. But we still wanted to own them because it has this incredible nostalgic value. It has a flex value versus your friends. You just want to have it for your own, right? Another example I give is, like, I grew up playing lacrosse. I certainly could have gone to a Play It Again store, right? A used sports gear store, and gotten all used gear, or even rented it and given it back at the end of the season. But my preference was still to own it, and that's most people's preference still. And it turns out that in the digital space, it's really not too different. We've just never had that capability of actually owning things before.
You talk about your aha moment, it sounded like, was
oh my gosh,
being at a traditional game studio, looking at the middlemen, which
I can give you this example. Yeah.
Give me the example, and then I'll ask
the
question.
It was Voodoo where I was at, and I published this game called Fat Pusher, which was a blast. And the dev was this solo dev named Batzaya. He was 23 years old, based in Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. We became super tight through the whole process. He had like a newborn at home, and we pushed this game live. And the game did like millions of dollars, and he himself, I think, did like $200,000 or $300,000, which for him was super impactful. And it was so cool to get to be a part of his life in that way. But I'm just looking at this discrepancy, like, Batzaya, you created this game, and it's such a bummer to see what you're missing out on at the end of the day. And so I had to find something else. And like I said, I stumbled across NFT Gaming because of a Clubhouse chat, actually, like way back when that was still really a thing. And yeah, it was just this immediate click, like, there are no publishers in this space, right? You don't even have to be on app stores. Now, we'll get into that. That's definitely an ultimate goal. But these games are doing it all with direct distribution to communities. And that was the aha moment for me.
And the old model evolved to what it was because you needed help with the distribution, and you needed these middlemen to get your game out there and to get it in front of players and to actually have anybody use it. And in a whole bunch of ways, social media, so many things have evolved since these early models came into existence that have made going direct to consumer so much easier. And that's sort of fundamentally this shift that we're living through in blockchain and in everything that the internet has ushered in. So it's also my understanding that that really was the intention of Sky Mavis when it launched. Sky Mavis launched, I believe, in 2018. Founders saw CryptoKitties, and they were like, how can we take blockchain to empower players and creators of games? Do I have that right? Would you articulate that in any sort of different way? Just starting with that that initial intention with the game? Because we're going to get into how it's evolved in ways that have had mixed reactions.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a totally fair way to think about it, right? A lot of our kind of OG community and founders all came from CryptoKitties, and CryptoKitties really kind of set the tone for how NFTs could be used. But it was just this breeding gameplay. And I think that, you know, especially our core team saw this like, hey, we can take this player-owned asset kind of aspect and port it over to really any game. And that's what they did as they started building out Axie Infinity. And what's so cool, you know, I guess you may not have played RuneScape either, but I think that I
did play RuneScape.
There you go. Almost everybody our generation did. It's crazy. It's crazy. Middle school.
That's awesome. Exactly.
Yeah, so RuneScape is a great example because there's this really big, it still exists today, black market economy for gold in RuneScape. It's like farmed, a lot of times it's farmed in China, and then they kind of illicitly resell the accounts to people who are willing to pay for them. It's massive, it's ongoing, and it's illegal, right? RuneScape doesn't let it happen. They can't really do a heck of a lot. Well, Axie Infinity just flipped it on its head and said, screw it, let's just condone that, right? Yeah, everyone's going to do it anyways. Yeah.
Where does this black market RuneScape gold, what's the marketplace for it?
So the last I saw was it was on eBay. I haven't played RuneScape in so long. I don't know where you buy and sell the accounts now, but yeah, it's out there. And so if people are going to do it anyways, and if it turns out that's what people really want, then why not just tokenize every asset in the game? Therefore, allowing it to be freely tradable. Give players a marketplace where they can do it easily instead of having to do some sketchy transaction through eBay, right? And then take a 4.25% marketplace fee off the top of it. Throughout all of that, you are opening the economy, allowing it to be player-owned, letting players do what they really want, and taking a fee to kind of run everything on all the players' behalf. That's kind of what Axie started out as. And then, you know, there was another big step, but we'll save that part.
Okay, let's do this really briefly, and I don't want to spend, let's make it like 30 seconds, because I'm sure most people understand it, but for those who don't, give like the high-level flyover of what Axie is, how it works.
Definitely. So it's a card battler game, really similar to like Pokemon in that sense, right? And it has these really cute digital collectibles we call Axies. They're the pets. So every time you want to play, it's a battle of 3 Axies, one player's 3 Axies against another 3 Axies, like a bot or another player. So in order to start playing, traditionally you would have to buy 3 Axies in order to unlock the game, essentially, and then at that point you can play. Now, you know, the composition of your Axies is totally controlled by the different parts that make up each Axie, and that's what makes each Axie so unique. There's like 7 or 8 different parts depending on how you think about it. So let's say you want to build a really specific team, you know, based on the parts to like theory craft the team you want. You can go on the open marketplace and buy other Axies that have been created because they're all NFTs, or each Axie can be bred 7 times. So you can also get really clever about breeding your Axies to try to produce a specific, you know, team that you want, desired team. But that's grown so much. People breed specifically to sell on the marketplace. What builds will people be wanting, right? There's an esports aspect to it as well. So there's a lot of depth that has popped up, but I think that's the 10,000-foot view.
Beautiful. And then I think that I'll add here, there's really 2 tokens to be aware of. There's SLP, which is Smooth Love Potion. Did it used to be called something else?
Small Love Potion, Smooth Love Potion, yeah.
Okay, because I've watched intense Axie YouTubers
doing your research
from old ones. Yeah, and this was even, you know, probably months ago, even before this interview, when I was first trying to understand it, and somebody was calling it Small Love Potion, and I'm like, the odds are that I'm wrong, and yet I feel like I've always heard it Smooth Love Potion.
It's crazy how fast stuff goes stale in this space. Yeah. Content goes stale overnight in the NFT space. It's amazing.
Yeah, everything moves so fast. Okay, so Smooth Love Potion, that is your, you know, in-game kind of economy currency.
That's right.
When we talk about, if you've heard something about Axie Infinity, you've probably heard the fact that you have people internationally who you know, are making a living essentially playing the game, and that's because they were earning SLP, this in-game economy token, battling with their Axies, and then converting that SLP into an ETH and ultimately a fiat or something like that. Right. Then you have AXS, which is the Axie shards, and that's your governance token. And this will get us to, which is something we'll probably touch on later, which is this ultimate vision that's about decentralizing Axie.
Right.
And AXS, you need it to breed, but really it's this sort of promise of the users having more ownership over Axie itself. Did I get that right?
Yeah, I think you nailed that. So Axie Infinity, the game, is kind of owned and operated by Axie DAO. And Axie DAO is a separate organization than Sky Mavis. Sky Mavis, we're the developers, but we are a private company, whereas Axie DAO is essentially owned and controlled by AXS token holders.
Right now, is a lot of that concentrated within sort of Sky Mavis and its VCs?
So we have the kind of social contract that we have with our community right now. It's really, really impressive. We are driving towards solid kind of product market fit. And the social contract that we have is that we are kind of entrusted to really drive and govern the game in Axie DAO in a way that's going to get us to product market fit, within the next couple years. And over that process, we're also going to build out what true governance kind of looks like.
And when you say product market fit, does that mean scaling to be I don't know, what's the benchmark that a game looks to be? Because right now Axie has 2.6 million wallets, or, like millions of users, which is great, but on the scale of games is maybe small. Yeah,
you can define this in so many different ways, right? We look huge for an NFT game. We have a long way to go in terms of comparing it to traditional games and the biggest games in the world. And that's where we see ourselves. And then even beyond that, the game itself is really a Trojan horse, and we're building kind of a network state. This is the first true digital nation, and how big will that be beyond what a game is?
So when you talk about product market fit, just to be clear, it is like our ultimate goal with this product is to be one of the biggest games, or be a very big game, period, not just within this category of NFTs.
That's right.
I'm a comedian, I'm not a female comedian, or like whatever like I don't want to have that asterisk next to me is what you guys are saying. We're not just an NFT game, we're a game. Yeah.
Right. And Carly, the truth is very soon no one's going to call it NFT gaming anymore.
Right.
We're just going to call
it's just gaming.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Though, do you think this is a macro question, which maybe I'm inserting here too early in the interview, but like, you have, I get the comparison to free to play often that people make with like NFT gaming, and we still have this category of like free to play games that are distinct from other categories of games. Do you see blockchain gaming and the use of NFTs in games as like there will always be some that have it, some that don't? It's a part of this broader ecosystem, and you will have that category? Or are you like, no, it's taken over the whole game?
That's such a hot button question. That's it really is. I don't think that. I don't think that games without some type of digital ownership element to them will really, really continue to persist and be super popular in the longer term. Right?
And do you think that all future games that are made, or do you think like Call of Duty or insert popular video game up to this point will start introducing it? Oh,
absolutely, they'll introduce it. Absolutely, yeah. All of them are thinking about it, right? It's just because there's backlash. Traditional gamers hate NFTs, and it's because they think they're cash grabs by developers, when really it's the exact opposite. It's what unlocks kind of consumer protection and true ownership. Anyways, as soon as players are on board, every game dev will.
And is the key to you in that, and this will tie to Axie in all sorts of ways, but having a blockchain game that is really fun, which I hesitate to say that because it almost sounds like I'm potentially insulting Axie, but we'll talk about that. The sustainability question, right? Is like, it takes a long time to develop a game, and Axie has pushed the space forward in so many ways and is continuing to build in all these ways we're going to talk about. But we haven't yet seen a game come out on blockchain that really is the equivalent of like a AAA game, studio game, and that's coming.
Totally. They're definitely being built. There's like 10 new NFT gaming projects a week, it feels like. And we actually have conversations with a ton of them because, we're actively looking for third-party devs to build on Ronin, on our network. You can totally see the difference, right? There are many that start with NFTs first, and those probably aren't going to be long-term sustainable gameplays. When you see these games that build gameplay first, and then find ways to sprinkle on digital asset ownership as cherries on top, those are the games that are fun, and those are the games that are really going to stick. And I think it's similar when you look at Axie. When I look at Axie Classic, right, V2, which is kind of what we're just about to start phasing out, I see a game that was built by a bunch of guys that wanted to build a game. And it's awesome, and it's adorable in a way, and it worked really well. When I look at Axie Infinity Origin, which we just launched about a week ago, I see a game that is actually built by a legitimate game studio, and you can see how much more fun it is almost instantaneously.
We're going to get into Axie Origin because, as something I said to you before we kick this off, I do really want to frame this conversation or address head on the sustainability question, which I know Axie is very upfront about. It is sort of the core of the debate around Axie is like, is it sustainable? And we'll get into why that debate exists. But let me first just cover guilds, because I think this is such an incredible thing that we saw ushered in because of Axie Infinity and the scholarship programs. Much like describing Axie, I'm sure lots of listeners are familiar with these, but just for the few that aren't, can you give the flyover of what are guilds and the scholarship program?
Guilds are such a cool concept, right? And scholarship programs and guilds often go hand in hand, although we're seeing a transition away from that now, which is cool. Essentially, like I said, Axie Classic, especially, in order to play it, you had to purchase 3 Axies in order to kind of get access to the game. You know, depending on token prices at any given time, that set of 3 Axies could have been, you know, $100, up to $600 even at one point, which is prohibitive to a lot of players. Whether
Didn't they get more than that?
It did, yeah. Floor prices were very high towards the end of last summer. And, you know, it's prohibitive not only because maybe you don't have enough money, but a lot of players actually do have the money, but they say, why do I want to spend $600 to try a game? I might not even like the game. And I get that, right? So, but all these tokens, these NFTs, these Axies, they're yield generating to some extent because they can be bred and resold, or because if you're winning in the game, you're earning SLP, which can be kind of exchanged back to fiat. So guilds came along, and I think I credit YGG with a lot of normalizing all this. And they realized that they could essentially purchase all of these assets. Guilds were asset rich and time poor. And then they could hire people in parts of the world who were time rich and asset poor, and essentially hire them to work these assets in the game to take a team of 3 Axies, play Axie Infinity with it for X hours per day, earn SLP, and then keep some share of the SLP for themselves, and then the guild would take some share of it as well. So it's this really cool model that sprung up.
And the Philippines, it seems like, was where it predominated mostly. Like it was huge in the Philippines. Is that right?
Yeah, it really, really caught fire there. Yeah, at one point, over half of our players were in the Philippines.
Wow. Do you have a sense, and I partly asked this to you because obviously you may know because Axie's maybe done research into it, and also you got your master's in Chinese studies, and do you live in Vietnam? Did I see that?
I'm moving to Vietnam in about a month, actually.
You're moving to Vietnam. So you're interested in that part of the world. Like, why the Philippines it caught the way it did?
So Axie, inherently, it has this incredible K factor, right? That word of mouth kind of virality. The number of people that the number of nodes one node will onboard is incredibly higher than your average game. So wherever it sticks, it tends to kind of catch. Why the Philippines? I think we had some early nodes there, if you will. Also, English usage is high. Axie's not localized. It's being localized. At the time, it wasn't, so it kind of stuck there. And we had a couple like really big, kind of high-profile people there. And again, I credit YGG and kind of Gabby for spreading a lot there. And I think it was a confluence of factors, and it really just caught fire.
At one point, the government in the Philippines, I think, like threatened to come after Axie as like an unregistered play. Like, how did that play out? And what is the state of things now?
I think we're the first game that is impacting state and local politics in some way. Yeah. The federal government of the Philippines issued kind of a statement just wanting to make sure that all players earning SLP were paying taxes on their SLP. That's certainly something we want to be in line with, and so we issued a similar statement. There are local politicians who are including Axie in some way, this is in the Philippines, in some way, shape, or form within their political campaigns. So there's a lot of awareness in the Philippines, kind of up the chain of Axie.
I've heard this critique. I will say I personally find it bizarre, and I can maybe give my thoughts on it. I imagine we feel similarly, but that is critical of Axie and the play to earn model, which obviously I'm assuming that term started with Axie and came from Axie, as being just highly exploitative. And I think looking at these scholarship programs in particular, and it just being like a very clear, like you have the kind of rent seekers, like the landowners, and then the laborers are doing the work and they're paying rent. It's almost what you're describing of like it feels like a middleman or something, you know, like, how do you respond to those criticisms?
So our community has done a really great job of self-policing. There were definitely some really highly exploitive scholarship programs at certain points that were paying out stupid low, percentages. Our community's done a great job of self-policing and really trying to push those out. We're working on an internal scholarship kind of tool that will help keep some like market average of what proper payouts should be as well. But you know, it's definitely important that things stay fair there. I think you touched on an interesting thing too around where did this play to earn kind of concept come from. That's a really, really cool history because it wasn't actually something that we pushed. Because we want all of our assets to be on chain, SLP was tokenized, right? SLP is just like an asset you'd see in a normal game. You could win gold, right, in a normal game, but it's not tokenized, and the game itself is like a walled garden. Well, because SLP was our in-game asset, it's the faucet is when you win a game. The sink for burning that SLP is to breed your Axies, right? So this flywheel was created. But because it's tokenized, obviously it can be taken out of the game and you can do whatever you want with it. Some of our community members actually got on a DEX, I believe it was Sushi, I'm not sure which though, and they created a liquidity pool of SLP and just like that, you had the ability to play to earn. So it wasn't even actually us who really pushed that, it was our community that created the ability to play to earn in the first place.
And that term, play to earn, did that stem from the Axie team? Where did that start?
That one came from the community as well, and we were actually pushing toward. It might have even been the media, to be honest. A lot of articles were coming out. We think play and earn is a more proper concept, and so that's how we really term it ourselves.
And that I feel like is a shift that is sort of what's underway right now with Axie Infinity Origin, and this gets us to where I want to go. So I do just want to quickly round out my thought because I was calling it bizarre. This criticism of like, oh, it's so depressing to me that you have these people in developing countries, like, you know, working away at games and it's exploited. And I'm like, to me, it's just more choice. Yeah. I'm sure there's dark things that go on and I'll show that, but I find that argument weird. Like nobody's going there with a gun saying this is how you have to make your living. You know, like how is more options for ways that people can earn money not a positive thing?
Exactly. So, it's just another option in the job market, right?
Yeah, it's another tool in the toolbox that we're
Exactly.
Agreed. Okay. I just wanted to, I was calling it bizarre, and I didn't want it to make it seem like I think it's like bizarre to have any sort of critique of people making suboptimal wages or any of the rest of it. No. Okay. This sustainability question. This has been, I think, the debate that has dogged Axie. I said earlier, Axie's very aware of it, is very upfront about it, but let's just dive into it a little bit more. I think the centerpiece of this, right, is this a Ponzi scheme in some way, right? Like, is this sustainable, with the problem being a lot of its players up to this point have played the game to make money. And that was why they were there. And so they're there to extract something from the game. You also have fees that are paid out. And so you also have, you know, AXS token holders extracting something from the game as it's played. And obviously the central challenge there being like, in order for that dynamic to continue, you constantly need new money flowing into the game and you need new players constantly coming in.
That's right.
But eventually the rubber meets the road. Eventually, you know, you can't, there's a limit to how many new players you can get. And suddenly then you have diminishing returns and the whole ecosystem starts to fall apart. So that's, do you want to add anything to that on this question of sustainability, or is that kind of the summary you'd say on the...
That's the summary of the critique, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about what you guys are doing about it then. It's been, again, Axie knows this. Axie is like, we get it. We know that alone is unsustainable. Talk to us about where we are right now in terms of the transition to I don't know, change the model, evolve the model, however you would frame it.
Yeah, I think we feel that more than anybody else in the space, right? Every open economy NFT game will face this at some point. And that's what's so exciting to me about Axie is we're solving it. And so I think we're creating a playbook for people to follow, right?
And you guys get so much credit for that, by the way. I think there's like, you know, there's FUD, every community is going to get FUD, but I think fundamentally, like, just the credit to Axie for being the first to do all of this. You know, you're building the plane as it's flying, trying to figure it out in real time.
That's a good way to put it. That is a good way to put it, yeah. Yeah, so and there's so many different aspects to it, but what we really believe is at the end of the day, this extractive model, it doesn't work, and that's proven. That's proven out already. And no open economy can run that way, right? No nation state has that either. Now, what it means for play and earn, to me, it's not everybody who puts money in will make an entire ROI out of it. You know, some players absolutely will, some players won't. But the truth of it is that to have a fully sustainable economy, you're looking for players who aren't only trying to get in for ROI.
We want players who like to play the game.
Exactly. And that's hundreds of millions of people who are playing current non-NFT video games, right? We don't have to look far. It turns out people love to do that anyways. And so that's why serving up a truly fun game is our number one goal to actually meet that, right? So that's step one. And we've done that with Origin. We're doing that with every future game that's coming as well, of which there will be many. And then you sprinkle in this ability to own your own assets. You sprinkle in earning mechanics. So players who are extremely skilled, they will be rewarded, and they actually probably will play to earn, right? So other archetypes of players, like collectors, people who are playing and really trying to collect top tier Axies and know what they're doing there. They may be able to earn as well. Subsets of scholars will be able to earn as well. So it doesn't entirely disappear. But the other piece that unlocks, and this is what's really interesting for a player like me, when I play a traditional game, okay, let's say I play Fortnite and I buy like a Marshmallow skin. You know, the DJ Marshmallow. His skins are really hot right now. It's a sink. I'm not getting any money back. I know it when I put the money in. Now, let's say I go and play Axie. I'm not trying to play to earn. I'm just enjoy playing it, and I kind of like that I can own my assets and they're cute. I put $100 in, and then I decide to leave in 2 months, and maybe I can resell my assets for $75. When I compare that to Fortnite, where I lose 100% of my value, versus Axie, where I lose only 25% of my value, it still is a completely different ownership mechanism, right? And so in that sense, like play and earn or owning ownership mechanics within a game is different. And I'm spending because I want to play the game, but it's still a cherry on top to me that I owned my mechanics in the first place.
Let me ask a question I don't know that you can answer. Such a fun interviewer I am, aren't I? Yeah. That's a blast for you.
Go for it.
And there's going to be maybe a funky lead into this, but I hope it's actually educational and interesting for people too. Something that I learned as I was looking into this is you guys made a change to the economics, I think, at the end of last fall. And my understanding of what this is, and you can correct me, is there was this unsustainability thing happening. There were a lot of bots at like the low level who were coming in and able to make money basically by doing very, very little and not being very good players, but they could make enough that if it's, you know, if you're running a bot farm that's doing it, it's obviously worth it to you. And so you guys made this shift where basically players who were under a certain level, who were weren't playing well enough, earned nothing suddenly, as opposed to the little bit that they could maybe earn previously. And again, that sort of wipes out the bots. It also meant that a lot of players that maybe weren't so good left the game. And that like shifted this window so that it suddenly was a much more competitive game. So it wasn't just players that were bad that left and weren't making anything now. You had the players who were maybe able to make a little bit more because they were playing against all these bad players who had maybe been in the middle of the whatever window. They were now at the bottom of the window, you know, and they were kind of struggling to earn. And yet on the flip side, the best players now could earn a bit more. And it feels like the shift came partly in this timeline of there was a period of time when playing Axie Infinity, you could earn more than minimum wage in the Philippines, or the average wage, I think, in the Philippines. And then as more players joined, that went down. And so this shift, I don't know if this was its intention, but part of what it did is it meant that the top players now could earn a better living, but it did mean that people sort of in the middle at the bottom were earning less. Do I have that summary correct?
Yeah, that's more or less right. I believe we've actually done away with that those low-end gates on earning mechanics as well. But yes, that's more or less what happened at the time. And when we really think about it, right, our goal then was to get rid of the bots. That had to happen. We also wanted to start to control SLP issuance in some way because it got out of hand, and that was a big part of the sustainability question. So when we look at how do we control SLP issuance, we want to make sure that we're rewarding players who are bringing the most value to the game. That's what NFT gaming does. Everyone's time is valuable. Everyone should be rewarded for the value that they help create. Just by playing a game, I'm bringing value to the game because I'm bringing player liquidity to the game. But you can start to segment the value of that player liquidity, and we want to make sure we're getting the most player liquidity at the higher ends of the competitive spectrum because those are high value players as well. And so by helping to shift that MMR, the kind of player skill level window of things, we were able to increase player liquidity at the top end of the spectrum as well. So we're driving higher value players and making sure we're rewarding them really well.
Do you guys think about it, and this is part of this difficult question that I don't know you can answer, like the media, quote unquote, who's framing things in terms of like wages in the Philippines.
Yeah.
Do you guys think in those terms of like, we want this to be a game that some people can play to make a living on in parts of the world?
Our number one goal is to build a fun game that with a player-owned economy and truly digital assets.
Okay.
Yeah, that's number one.
A good line.
As there's earning mechanics in it, that's awesome. We love that people can earn off the back and can supplement their incomes, or in some places in the world can drive their entire.
But you
income
are
from
driving the economics, and there's tokenomics to this, and you are thinking about SLP. Inflation,
Dude,
deflation. You're thinking about all those things. So inevitably, it sort of seeps in these dynamics of how much can somebody earn a given day with SLP or whatever.
Yes, some of it can't be ignored, but in our central banking calculus that's going on,
in your Ben Bernanke, whatever, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Some variables are taken into account, some are not. Yeah.
It's increasingly obvious that everything will become tokenized, and NFT marketplaces needs robust financial reporting, performance analysis, and the peace of mind that they are compliance ready. Guilded's NFT Ops is a one-stop financial reporting solution for growing NFT platforms. Guilded has developed marketplace-specific modules to track the financial performance of NFT creators, including revenue tracking, collection metrics, royalty payments, and revenue share. Customers of NFT Ops gain full access to accounting tools and powerful APIs for custom integrations that simplify operations, streamline reporting, and produce tax-ready data. So no wonder why so many top brands like CoinMarketCap, Gitcoin, Nifty's, and POAP trust Guilded to automate complex reporting workflows. Visit guilded.finance/bankless to learn more. If you're starting on your NFT journey, you need MetaMask. This is your tool to unlock the world of DeFi and NFTs without giving up custody over your private keys. MetaMask is both a secure in-browser wallet and also a secure bridge for your hardware wallet so that you can connect to any Web3-enabled website. You can now trade tokens with any DEX or aggregator. MetaMask Swap gathers real-time pricing information across the DeFi exchange ecosystem, allowing you to select your best price while getting all of the MetaMask benefits of self-custody, lower gas costs, and increased transaction success rates. MetaMask also has a fantastic mobile wallet, which I use while I'm out and about. And I use it to collect POAPs, NFTs, and use it for all my DeFi things while I'm away from home. If you haven't downloaded MetaMask, you gotta try it out. Download MetaMask for desktop and mobile at metamask.io, or load up your Ledger, Trezor, Keystone, or Lattice hardware wallets so that they too can get into Web3.
Let's get into Axie Infinity Origin. This is now a totally separate game, essentially, from Axie Infinity, correct? And you've already talked a little bit about it. It's much more traditional game studio game. Why is this a big leap forward for this game? How does it tie into this making it a sustainable question, which of course is just making a fun game?
Yeah, so I think there's kind of like a small answer, and then there's my really hype answer. So on the small answer side, like it's revamped, it's faster, it's more professional in terms of like being a game studio who builds a great game. And the art is beautiful. I think that's kind of the small answer. The really hype answer is it's free to play. We're giving free starter Axies, 3 free starter Axies to anybody who joins the game and doesn't own NFT Axies. And that, to me, that's the biggest unlock for our space, right? When you look at onboarding into NFT gaming, my goal is I want, my 62-year-old mom who plays a match 3, she plays Candy Crush. I want her to be just as likely to play Candy Crush as she is Axie Infinity. And with Axie Classic, there's no way she's going to download MetaMask, bridge her assets to Ronin, get a Ronin wallet, go spend $400 on a team. No way. No way. But now, once we're live on the App Store, she can press download and start playing with 3 free starter Axies immediately. That's how we're bringing this to the world.
And just to be clear, because I think this is really cool too, the key point here, which I think you said, but it's easy to gloss over, is that these are not NFTs. So the point is this is not diluting the value of Axies, because these aren't Axies that you can buy and sell in the way you can the NFT Axie. So if you want to play in a more earning capacity, you actually do need to still buy into the system, buy into the ecosystem. These are non-NFT Axies that just allow you to, hopefully, if you're your guys, get addicted to the game. Is that right?
Yes. So we will bring people in. We'll give them these non-NFT Axies. These cannot be bred, resold, obviously, nor are there earning mechanics off the back. So if you want to participate in earning mechanics, you can certainly buy. But what's even cooler is, let's say you don't care about earning mechanics, but you just want to own a piece of the economy. You want to own an asset that aligns your incentives with everyone else. You can also buy for that reason as well.
You mentioned the app stores, which I think are huge to this. This is this question of distribution that we kicked the call off with. This is key to going from 2 million players to, again, whatever the biggest games in the world
80
have.
million, yeah.
I know at one point you guys were talking about launching on, I think, Steam and then Apple and Google Play. was it after that Steam had their weird announcement about we'll never have NFTs, NFT gaming, so that's sort of off the table. Is the plan still like Google and Apple Play and being in these app stores, and how is that going? I know there's been, Apple's also made it very difficult to make NFT or blockchain games or assets in
They're
their
moving
store.
slowly. They're moving very, very slowly. So I think it's worth starting with this. When we think about a traditional Web3 game, NFT game, there's really 3 proven distribution channels. It's community, it's content creators, and it's ecosystem plays, which in our case is guilds, right? When a guild onboards a scholar, we also grow. So we're doing everything we can to completely unlock and optimize those distribution channels. On the side, we're also really grinding on Web2 proven channels. The biggest ones there, that's Google Play, and it's the App Store. We have meetings with teams at both. I got lunch along with Psychout and Jihos in San Francisco about 3 weeks ago with the App Store's head of blockchain, right? They all get it. They know that this is here to stay. They have a lot of respect for everything that NFT games are building. And we're leading those conversations right now. It's just going to be a slower process. And that's fine. You know, the biggest things for them are, it's not a question of, is this a fad? What it really is their own player protection. They've built so much into a traditional Web2 app experience that really protects players, and they don't yet know how they wrap that into a NFT game or a Web3 app download as well. Which is understandable.
Are they concerned about community backlash? Because there's so much...
They're not.
There's so many fraught feelings in the gamer community around NFTs? No.
They're not. And I think if they push it as well, the kind of social stamp of approval will be really, really nice. But, you know, we're working hand in hand with them. Ultimately, we've kind of gotten a nod to actually help them rewrite some of their policies around NFT gaming. So we're really hoping that we can blaze the way here for a lot of NFT games to follow us and all of our future games as well.
It's funny. I'm once again sort of seeing the echo with free-to-play. I interviewed Justin Waldron, who founded Zynga, and it was Zynga who first got in-app purchases in the App Store through, you know, whatever. You could buy poker chips in the app with real money, and the App Store was very opposed to that, and then they showed them the way, and here we are. You mentioned the distribution channels, the Web3 native distribution channels for gaming. You mentioned the guilds, which we've been talking about. I'm curious, feels like there's a lot of opportunity around guilds, which I think will continue to be huge in this space for Axie and as other games, you know, and other games that exist and continue to come out. Do you see where do you see that evolving? Do you see business opportunities where you're like, here's what the guild world needs? Tell me, give me some thoughts.
I'm so excited by the future of guilds. It's incredible, right? We've had this massive proliferation of guilds. There's hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Many have successfully raised like some impressive raises with VCs and everything. And a lot of them have really been focused on like the traditional scholarship extractive model. And some of those will stay around, but the coolest ones right now are completely transitioning, right? Because it turns out there's like so much that we need in the Web3 space and the guild space especially. So some of the ones I'm most excited about, like the guilds who are doing software as a service packages, right? Whether it's like to help NFT gaming platforms be better at what they do, or to help other guilds be better at what they do. Like these are guilds that don't even have scholars, and they're crushing it. Lifestyle guilds are the ones that are most exciting to me. So like there's a guild called Metagoons right now, which I just am enamored by, to be totally honest. And they have a merch drop coming out, and it's really badass merch. And like they kind of remind me of like 100 Thieves to some extent, except cooler and Web3 focused. But like they're building this brand and like what it means to be a brand in the NFT gaming space. Like we need a lot more of that, to be honest, because that's what's defining culture.
And so explain to me, let's start with just like basically with guilds. And, you know, up to this point, I think what you're describing is up to this point, revenue has primarily come from guild members play games and earn something. But then also you have these scholars that kick back, you know, that you're loaning out your Axie and they kick back money to you if they win. And that's been the primary revenue source with guilds. And you're describing branching out. So there's additional revenue sources, for example, just becoming like a brand that sells merch and sells tickets to IRL events or whatever else. I mean, basically what we're seeing with PFP projects that are trying to become brands. Do I have that right?
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head. They all really started with having scholars. But what they started to realize was like, holy shit, we have this really impressive like user base and labor force, if you will, all of whom are hungry and like are badass in Web3, want to do so much more than just play a game. Like let's all work together and actually build something way cooler. And so now you have like these guilds who like
are they launching PFPs?
Some of them are. You have guilds. All of the top content creators are aligning with guilds or starting their own, right? So it's like you're seeing this really become the future of what NFT gaming is. The games are just the platforms, and it's the guilds and the players and the communities who are interacting on top of it and building.
Okay. Amazing. Back to Origin.
Yep.
Are there other, so we've got this critique around sustainability, you know, is the economic model sustainable? Solve there, quite obvious, make a game that people actually just want to play. Yep. Obviously that's one goal with Axie Infinity Origin. It's also how do we still have this growth model and get more people into the game? The free non-NFT Axies is part of that, distribution will be part of that, et cetera. Yeah. Are there other critiques you've heard, or maybe it's not even, doesn't have to be a critique, but just like imperfections within, you know, the previous Axie ecosystem that has been leveled up or is being solved with Axie Origin?
Yeah, I mean, even if we look at Origin itself, right? Like we're in early access right now, and we have 500,000 testers right now, 500,000 weekly active users after just 7 days. And so we're working out a lot of the kinks and a lot of the bugs within that. Longer term, one thing I'm super excited about with Origin is more syncs for SLP. And that was something that Axie Classic didn't have. The only sync for SLP was to breed your Axies. It turns out, you know, people actually would spend SLP for other reasons other than just breeding their Axies, right? Maybe it's runes and charms, which are like ways to level up your Axies. Oftentimes it's also just flexing, right? Like if we think back to Web 2, when I buy a marshmallow skin, it doesn't give me power-ups in Fortnite.
It's social signaling.
Bingo. Right? It's the same reason why PFP projects work. And we want to build a lot of that into Origin. We've got a great roadmap for that as well.
Okay, so and my impression, and it seemed like you were maybe alluding to this a little bit, you're obviously in early access, you're collecting community feedback. Yeah. Feels like there's been a lot of successes here. I know your team sent me some numbers beforehand touting all the successes, and I have them here. So, you know, over 1 million PvP matches and all these free-to-play players and all these new users with Ronin's accounts and blah, blah. So safe to say there's been a lot of success here. Yeah. There also has been, I think, just a bunch of community feedback and definitely some fraughtness elements of the game itself, which it seems like Philip Law, I think, is somebody who you guys hired recently who seems to be really beloved, who's really taking the time to understand community feedback on the Origin side. And then there's also, which we're going to talk a little bit about, sort of maybe some fraughtness around land and Axie's Metaverse play, and I want to talk about that. Do you have any learnings, takeaways from, you know, running a game or working within a company that also has a huge community that are part owners?
Right. That's the key part.
Yeah, that both because they actually are and because of the way this space is. And so, you know, it's the decentralization piece. What have been your learnings there?
That's such a cool question, right? And our community lead, Syntax is his handle, Paul is his name. His biggest role right now is really teaching a lot of us on the team what it means and how you actually do a lot of that. I think we've learned it the hard ways a couple times over, but we're starting to get a lot better at it. And basically, I mean, look, I can actually give you an example, right? So we're working on a creator program, Axie Creators. It will really be the first of its kind NFT gaming creator program, which we're psyched about. We tried to roll it out maybe 2 months ago. We didn't collect any community feedback ahead of time. We didn't connect with anybody. I was leading it, and I took a very Web 2 approach where I said, hey, I think this is what's best. Let me push it out. I was destroyed for it. And quickly learned my lesson from that. I called off the program, and now we're just starting to give it life again. And what does that mean? Like it's this really cool kind of almost political campaign. And it's very grassroots. Like we're starting with one-on-ones with so many of our top creators saying, hey, what should this look like? What do you want to see coming from this? Here are the pain points that we have. How should we solve this? And then from there, it grows out into another concentric ring, and then it's a Twitter thread, and then it's a Twitter space. And all of this is us just pitching straw men. And I think the biggest learning for me is every single time someone raises like, hey, that's wrong, it's, okay, well, what should we do about it? And we force the community to solve our problems for us because they're our problems. They're not our problems. And then by the time we push something live, everyone's been heard. Everyone has voiced their concerns. When someone else voices another concern, it's not Sky Mavis who pushed that idea in the first place. It's all of us in the community. So the community jumps in to defend it against someone else. And it really, it's very much kind of grassroots consensus building from the start. It's much more open-ended than a traditional Web 2 kind of project would be.
On this theme, can you speak to or maybe talk a little bit more about the path from where we are today to decentralization. We spoke a little bit about it earlier, but it's definitely something that Axie's talked about, this moving towards greater decentralization, greater power for AXS. I don't know if there's more you want to say on that than we've
it's so important. Like I said, we have this really, really great kind of social contract in place right now where we're trusted to really push it. Our AXS holders are they really believe, they're long-term focused, but, we're taking steps. This progressive decentralization is so key. We're all bought into it. So our next biggest step, we want to roll out what is essentially, you could think about it like a token-gated Reddit. And it's very close. It's gone through a bunch of internal testing, but it's this form where you can connect your Ronin wallet, where you hold all your Axie assets, and all of our AXS holders, if they meet the threshold, which will be low enough for mass participation, will be able to post and interact with everybody. We can vote. We can look at what most top-voted, upvoted comments and issues might be. So that's a really big step towards this progressive decentralization. I think the next thing on top of that is we're setting up a bunch of councils. We've just created like a competitive integrity council. So these are like, where it used to be Sky Mavis stepping in and saying, hey, we think this is cheating, whatever it might be in game, and here's the ban that happens. That doesn't look great in a game that's supposed to be truly decentralized. Now we have this council, which is community-led and respected, who can actually make the decisions for us. I'm doing the same thing with the creator program. We'll have a creator council who actually leads and makes a lot of the tough decisions for the creator program itself. So these are like the short-term steps we're taking. Ultimately, it's going to get there over the next couple of years to be something that's truly governed. I think the coolest thing that could happen, and the mechanics are there for it, one day AXS holders could decide that Sky Mavis shouldn't even be the lead dev on Axie Infinity anymore. And it could definitely happen over the next couple of years.
That's wild. And the distribution of AXS, you think will be that way? Part of it is that, you have to have Sky Mavis or VCs or things sell the AXS, or am I... do I not know the token distribution well enough?
You do. I love that you're asking that, right? We can hold, we're committed to holding about 20% of it in the long term, right? For the forever, should we decide to keep it. Right now, we control a mass amount of it because we are, pushing towards product market fit. But we're committed to distributing the funds, the pools where a lot of them are held. We're committed to distributing those over the next 4 years. So, we have to reach a very broad and diverse token holdership of AXS, and that's really a huge goal for us.
Okay, last theme here, because I know we're running up on time, and maybe we'll do a couple like rapid fire ending questions about the future. But the metaverse play, I'll call it. I said this to you at the beginning of this before we started recording, but the obvious thing for somebody like me who's sort of a noob to this whole world, both gaming period and then NFT gaming and all the rest of it, Axie making like a Roblox play is like a no-brainer, and it seems like that's what you guys are doing with Lunacia, which is very much not fully rolled out yet, but you had land sales, and the idea is that ultimately people will be able to build their own like Axie games and little worlds on that land that you can go visit and is interactive. Did I summarize that right? Tell me about Lunacia.
Lunacia is it's an exciting one. It's a massive program that we've kind of had to revamp real recently. We've got the roadmap in place. It's a multi-year roadmap with a really cool kind of lead game designer who's pushing all of it, and Phil is the steward of it, right? Yes, there's this land gameplay that's coming out. It'll be probably the second major Axie gameplay. There's a lot of forms to it. Phase 1 is starting out a bit more basic, but we want to unlock this land gameplay for people as soon as possible. As it gets into later phases, there'll be a lot of ability to kind of build on your own gameplay. But what I think is, build like using your own plot, right? But what I think is like really important kind of second to this is this like developer SDK, or this idea that third parties can build, whether it's on their land or just on Ronin in general. That is
SDK being developer kit, software developer kit?
Yeah, that's right. Okay. So that's huge. Like that's near and dear to my heart too, because that's when we truly become, I don't even like the word metaverse, but that's when we truly become like a metaverse, right? And it's,
I was going to ask, can you distinguish for me the like a land game play? Because that's like a thing now, you know? Can you explain what that is to me? Because in my head, that just means Roblox and users can build on it, but that's clearly not true, because there's a distinction between land gameplay and then land where people can build.
Yeah, I would say like the Roblox style thing is one example of land gameplay. Yeah.
But it can also be more centralized. Is that
Totally.
the alternative that you're describing as sort of the starting point that evolves into a Roblox style play?
Yeah, right. And I think our early style land gameplay is more about like, you know, I own my own land because I have that. I have access to this gameplay. And then once I'm on my land, I can like farm assets, harvest assets, use resources, right? Use those resources to construct things and kind of support battles and things like that.
There was some recent fraughtness, I keep using that term, around
this.
Term. Yeah, it feels like it applies because, and so I think there were a couple things. I think there was frustrations. People were maybe hoping that the plans around this were further along. They thought it was maybe going to be connected to Axie Origin. It seems like they've really been they're two distinct categories within the Axie ecosystem. There was talk of free land being given out to folks or being available to folks, which I think upset people who felt like, oh, I bought this land. Where's my utility for it? Do you want to speak to any of that, or can you speak to any of that?
Yeah, to the extent that I can, right? I feel for our community members. I'm a landholder myself as well. I know that timelines got pushed back. I think that was a big part of it. Timelines got pushed back and expectations were met in a different way than people had been hoping for. And I get that, right? And that's another area that we need to work on is how we communicate things and how we get feedback and build things with community before we actually make an announcement. I totally get that. You know, there's a phased approach. We've already, I think a lot of the landholder sentiment being down was around the ability to earning mechanics for the land that they were holding in the shorter term. Because in this presentation we rolled out, we kind of said it might be like 9 to 12 months. We've changed tack on that. We're working on an ability to earn in the much shorter term until we have kind of the more robust land gameplay rolled out. We're working with our landholders to do that. We have this landholder channel in the Axie Discord that's super active, and so we're working really closely with them to build something in the shorter term to allow them to earn, whether it's some kind of land staking capability or like a land mini gameplay where you have like this proof of play to earn. It's still up in the air, but you know, we want to make this one right for sure.
Okay, rapid fire, ending questions. The question I just had was not in the least rapid fire. It was like, paint me a picture of the future of Axie. I've said that I think concert tickets are how NFTs go mainstream. You mentioned earlier, Axie's trying to Trojan horse things. This is like a common theme. Axie's going to Trojan horse people into the blockchain. Do you think gaming is how this goes mainstream? Would you fight me on my concert? You're going to say it's gaming. I'm going to say it's concert tickets. Is that the fight we're going to have?
100%. Look, concert tickets can happen too, but it's got to be gaming, right? We've already done it. Most of our players had never touched crypto before Axie. And then guess what? They had the ability to learn Web3 while playing a fun game. And now we actually bring them in through free to play and then just teach them about things while they're playing. It's scary.
I don't play any games. Am I like really that much of the outlier?
I don't believe that.
I literally don't.
You don't have a single game on your phone?
We'll check this right now. I occasionally play Bubble Popper while I'm like watching something. I don't even think I have it downloaded though. I have Bubble Shooter. I have 2 versions of Bubble Shooter on my phone. Those are literally the only games I have on my phone. I'm going to lose nobody's going to follow me anymore. They're like, how can you possibly be a credible voice in Web3 when you're like not a gamer, like you're not a gamer.
You got to download more just to say you have more on your phone.
I know, I do. I mean, I played Wordle for a couple days.
Okay, yeah.
But I don't. I literally have not a single. Oh, Sporkle Party. I also have Sporkle Party. We're boring people now, but Sporkle Party. You know that game? It's like a trivia game that you play in a group, or like you have to. I don't know. Whatever.
I actually haven't played that one, but here's
because nobody who's actually a gamer plays Sporkle Party. I play non-gamer games, and I hardly play those.
How often would you say you play a game? Like maybe once a week or something like that?
No. Oh my God, no.
Not even.
No.
All right. Well, you may be a special case, but what I do want to say is like. Most people are gamers. They just they just don't think of themselves that way. When you think of a gamer, you think of like a high schooler playing zombies in their parents' basement. But the truth is my mom who plays Match 3 is a gamer, just like she's a TV watcher. So it's absolutely massive, the window of people we have access to.
You are definitely right. I mean, again, my mother plays Scrabble on her phone. She plays games on her phone. Right. So I probably am like the really freaky outlier from people. But we'll see. We'll see who wins. Down the line, we'll have to see how many people are playing blockchain games versus how many people have bought an NFT in the form of some sort of like ticket.
A ticket, right.
Okay, well, Quinn, thank you so much. I really appreciate you hopping on here. There's obviously so much to unpack in the Axie ecosystem in general. So we've like done the first pass at it all, but we'll definitely have to have you / other, Axie folks on in the future to keep the conversation going.
Absolutely, Carly. This was a blast. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of Overpriced JPEGs. If you liked this conversation, if you liked this episode, please go ahead and hit subscribe. It helps me out, it helps the show out, and it means you will get alerts and updates when we post new content. Thanks again.